The first time I saw my roommate changing, I was holding a dripping plunger in one hand and a bowl of microwave chili in the other. So no, it wasn't exactly the opening scene of a romance movie. It was a Tuesday night in our apartment in Portland, rain slamming against the windows hard enough to make the glass shudder in its frame, and I'd been minding my own business the way any reasonably decent human tries to. I'm Grant Miller, 32, a web designer with a chronic habit of working past midnight and a firm belief that takeout counts as one of the major food groups. My roommate, Harper Ellis, was 29, a museum event coordinator, and the kind of woman who could make a silence feel deliberate, like she'd chosen it on purpose. She had this habit of stabbing a pencil through her hair when she was thinking hard, as if she'd wandered out of some old black and white film and landed, a little confused, in a rent-controlled two-bedroom with plumbing that couldn't be trusted. We'd been living together for 8 months. 8 extremely well-behaved months with separate shelves, separate laundry days, no weird comments, no loitering in the kitchen if one of us happened to be in pajamas. We were polite, friendly, functional, which was just a nicer way of saying that for 8 months I'd been pretending not to notice the way Harper laughed when she was exhausted, or the way she two-stepped in her socks while the coffee maker sputtered, or the way my own apartment had quietly stopped being a place I slept and started being somewhere I actually wanted to come home to. I had good reason to be careful. 2 years earlier I dated a coworker, ignored every flashing warning light along the way, and then watched the breakup turn my office into a courtroom where everybody had a verdict. Since then I've operated under one rule: don't manufacture romance out of proximity, especially not with someone who can hear you sneeze through a shared wall. That night, the guest bathroom toilet decided to stage a rebellion. The plunger lived in Harper's bathroom, and since she'd mentioned earlier she was heading out, I knocked on her door, on the assumption the coast was clear. Got no answer, knocked again, got nothing but the rain and the faint hum of music from inside her room, and noticed the bathroom door connecting to the hallway sitting cracked open with the plunger propped against the sink like some idiotic flag of temptation. Grab it, I told myself. Don't look left, don't be creepy. I nudged the door open with my elbow, stepped in, grabbed the plunger, turned to leave, and froze. Harper stood in front of the mirror, half-zipped into a dark green dress, bare shoulders catching the warm lamplight, hair loose down her back. The zipper had jammed halfway, and one arm was twisted behind her like she'd been wrestling the fabric for 10 straight minutes and losing gracefully. For a full second, neither of us moved. Then her eyes found mine in the mirror, and I spun around so fast that chili sloshed over the rim of the bowl and onto my wrist. God, Harper, I'm sorry, I knocked, I thought you were out. Bathroom. Plunger, there's a toilet situation. Not that the toilet's an excuse. I'm facing the wall, I'm leaving, with my plunger. I glanced down, still holding it. And chili, I added, hauling every scrap of dignity I had left back behind me. She made a sound that was almost a laugh, but not quite. Relax, I'm not calling the police. That's generous. You look terrified enough to count as punishment. I am terrified. I have deep respect for roommate boundaries and for women with access to steak knives. That time she really did laugh, and it changed the whole room more than it should have, and then she said, softer, Grant, since you're already standing there like a Victorian ghost, can you help me? I kept my eyes locked on the framed print of Mount Hood hanging on the wall. Help you with what? The zipper. That was the moment a smarter man would have said no, would have set the plunger down, backed into the hallway, and scheduled an emergency meeting with his common sense. But instead, I said, are you sure? And she said, yes, unless you want me to show up to this dinner in a dress that looks like it gave up mid-construction. So I turned slowly, eyes fixed on the top of her head like a monk in training, and she rolled her eyes at me in the mirror. Grant, I trust you. 4 words. That was all it took. I stepped closer. There are distances in life that don't look like much from the outside 3 feet of apartment floor. One careful breath, fingers finding the small metal tab at the center of someone's back, but I felt every inch of it. Harper swept her hair over one shoulder. The dress smelled faintly of cedar from her closet, and underneath that, something warmer that was simply her. She was close enough that I noticed a tiny beauty mark near her shoulder blade, and I had to concentrate on that zipper like it was a live wire. It's caught on the lining, I said. Can you fix it? I build websites for dentists. This is outside my certification. Try anyway. I worked the fabric loose, careful not to touch her more than necessary, careful not to notice how still she'd gone, careful not to enjoy the quiet trust of her letting me do this. And then I said, the zippers sliding up, my voice coming out rougher than intended. She checked herself in the mirror, then looked at me, and the green dress fit her like it had been made and waiting. Wow, I said, before I could stop it. Her expression shifted not dramatically, just enough. Wow, she repeated. I cleared my throat. I mean the zipper. Very successful zipper, right. The dress is also objectively well engineered. Harper turned, leaning back against the sink. You're terrible at pretending you didn't just compliment me. I wasn't pretending. That slipped out too easily, too. And for a second the whole apartment seemed to hold its breath along with us. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, and whatever softness had settled into her face dimmed. I caught the name before I meant to, Mom, and Harper didn't answer it, just watched the screen until it went dark. You okay? I asked. Fine. I knew that word. Everyone knows that word. It means absolutely not. She reached for her earrings, and one slipped from her fingers, bouncing into the sink. Perfect. Big dinner for my parents' 35th anniversary, she said, fishing it back out and drying it on a towel. At a restaurant where the bread comes with its own resume. Sounds serious. It is. My entire family will be there. That's good, right? She looked up, and that's when I noticed her eyes were shining, not crying. Exactly, more like she'd built an impressively engineered dam, and somebody had just put a hairline crack in it. My mother invited my ex, she said. The chili bowl suddenly felt absurd in my hand. Your ex? Derek, family friend, successful, charming, awful in ways that never show up in photographs. She smiled, but there was no warmth behind it. Apparently he's grown a lot and wants to apologize. I didn't love the way she apologized like the word had teeth. You don't have to go, I said. I do. It's my parents' anniversary. You don't have to talk to him. My family specializes in turning seating charts into psychological warfare. I set the chili down on the counter. Harper. She met my eyes again, and something in my chest pulled tight. This woman who could negotiate with florists, donors, caterers, and a broken espresso machine without so much as blinking, suddenly looked flat out exhausted, not helpless. Never that, just tired of being handled by people who mistook her good manners for permission. Then she tilted her head, studying me. You saw me changing. I apologized. You touched my zipper with consent and fear. You complimented me by accident, but you meant it. Her mouth curved. She took one step closer, not a big one, just enough to turn the space between us into a decision. So, she said, take responsibility. My brain, which had been performing badly all evening, gave up entirely. Harper picked up her phone, opened a message thread, and turned the screen toward me, a text from her mother. Can't wait to meet the man you're bringing. Derek will be there too. Let's keep everything pleasant. I stared at it, then at her. She lifted her chin, though her fingers tightened around the phone. I may have told my mother I was seeing someone, and when she asked who, I panicked and picked the man currently holding a plunger. You were top of mind. That is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Her laugh came out quick and nervous. She set the phone down and rubbed both hands over her face, careful not to smear her makeup. Forget it. I shouldn't have asked. It's weird. It's definitely weird, but not impossible. I could have walked away. Probably should have. Fake dating my roommate to fend off an ex at a family dinner sounded like a terrible plan cooked up by someone who actively hated peace of mind, but Harper was looking at me like she expected me to be sensible about it. And I was so tired of being sensible around her. Tomorrow night, I said. You'll do it? I have conditions. 1, we agree on a backstory. We're roommates isn't a backstory. It's the opening argument for why your family will assume we're lying. 2, no letting me accidentally promise your grandmother I'll show up for Christmas in matching pajamas. She prefers Easter brunch ambushes, actually. Noted. 3, I hesitated. Harper's expression softened. 3, if at any point you want to leave, we leave. No explanations, no negotiating. The teasing dropped out of her face entirely. This is your night too, not just theirs. She looked down at the tile between us, and then she reached out and touched my wrist. Just 2 fingers, light as breath, but it landed everywhere at once. Thank you, she said. I wanted to cover her hand with mine. I wanted to ask why she'd chosen me, out of everyone. Mostly I wanted to know if any part of this felt as dangerously easy to her as it did to me. Instead, I nodded like an idiot. and said, "Also, I need to go fix the toilet." Her smile came back, smaller and warmer. "Go be brave, boyfriend." The word landed straight in my ribs. Fake, I reminded myself. Temporary. An emergency arrangement with a 24-hour expiration date. Still, when I went to do battle with the guest bathroom plumbing, I was smiling. The next evening, Harper insisted on a rehearsal. I came out of my room in a navy jacket I hadn't worn since a client's wedding and found her in the kitchen, lining up questions on index cards. "You made flashcards," I said. "I coordinate events for a living. I don't walk into hostile territory without a run sheet. This is a dinner, not a bank heist." My Aunt Linda once made my cousin's boyfriend cry over dessert. I sat down at the table. "Hit me." She lifted the first card. "How long have you two been together?" 6 weeks. "Too short. My mother will want to know why I didn't mention it sooner." 3 months. "Better? Where was our first date?" I looked at her over the rim of my coffee mug. "We never had one." "Grant, we're lying. Let's at least make it plausible. We need details." "Fine. First date was that Thai place on Belmont." She made a face. "I hate that place." "I know. You ordered from there once and spent the entire meal insulting the noodles like they'd personally wronged you." Her pen paused above the card. "You remember that?" I shrugged, suddenly far too aware of myself. "You were passionate." She studied me for a long moment, something unreadable moving behind her eyes, and then she wrote, "Not Thai. Try again." "Powell's," I said. We got coffee, wandered the shelves for 2 hours, argued about whether cookbooks count as aspirational fiction. Her mouth curved slowly. "That sounds like us." "Then that's our first date. It also sounds suspiciously like something you'd actually enjoy. I'm committed to the role." She tapped the next card against her lips. "First kiss." The kitchen changed temperature by several degrees. I leaned back in my chair. "Do we need one?" My cousin Rena will ask. She has 0 boundaries and excellent lipstick. Tell her it was private. That'll make her worse. I looked at Harper. Harper looked at me. Her hair was down tonight, tucked behind one ear, and she'd chosen a black dress, simpler than the green one from the night before, but somehow twice as devastating. She had one knee drawn up onto the chair, barefoot, sitting sideways like we weren't currently designing weaponized intimacy under kitchen light. "Hallway," I said. Her voice dropped half a note. "What? Our first kiss? Hallway outside the apartment. You'd forgotten your keys." I opened the door. "You were annoyed." I was smug. "I'm never annoyed." "You're annoyed right now. Continue." "You said something sharp." I said something charming, unlikely, and then I stopped. Harper's smile faded into something quieter, less guarded. "And then?" she asked. The sensible answer was, "We'll improvise." The honest answer was standing too close to the edge of something I hadn't planned for. "And then I kissed you," I said, "because I'd been wanting to for a while." The room went still. It was acting. It was supposed to be acting, a fabricated memory assembled from nothing. Except Harper's fingers tightened around the index card, and my heart was being wildly, embarrassingly unprofessional about the whole thing. She looked away first. "That's good. Convincing. Very." We didn't say anything for a few beats. Then she slid off the chair. "We should practice." My pulse stumbled. "Practice what?" She gave me a look, half challenge, half nerves held together with dignity. "Couple behavior. We can't walk in there looking like two people who label their oat milk." "We do label our oat milk. Yours has a warning about the vanilla." "Exactly. Stand up." I stood. She came closer and took my hand. Simple, terrible, perfect. Her hand was cool, her fingers slipping between mine with a naturalness that made me briefly furious at the universe. Because how dare something built from a lie feel this much like recognition? "You're stiff," she said. "I'm not stiff. You're holding my hand like it's a legal document requiring 2 forms of ID." I adjusted my grip, my thumb settling over hers, and her breath caught, barely, but I heard it. "Better?" I asked. She nodded, then stepped fully into my space, and placed my free hand at the small of her back. And I forgot every language I'd ever spoken. "For dinner," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "If Derek tries that thing where he stands too close, you can just be there. I'm not going to maneuver around you for strategy." Her eyes came up to mine. "I know. That's why I asked you." There it was again, trust, which was becoming a genuine problem. I let my palm settle gently against her back, and I felt her exhale. "Like this?" "Yes," she smiled faintly. "You're annoyingly decent. You know that? Don't spread it around. I have a reputation as a mysterious plunger thief." Her laugh warmed against my chest, because she was that close. Close enough that one more inch between us would turn this into something else entirely. For a long moment, neither of us moved away. Then Harper whispered, "Grant? Yeah, why did you say yes?" I could have made a joke. I had 3 ready. I didn't use any of them. "Because you asked me," I said. "And because I don't like the thought of you walking into that room feeling like you're doing it alone." Her eyes moved across my face like she was looking for the catch. "That's not fake boyfriend talk," she said. "No." Her thumb moved over my knuckle. "Dangerous answer," she whispered. "Yeah." It was. The rideshare app chimed on her phone, and we separated like the sound had physically nudged us apart. The spell didn't break so much as fold itself neatly and slip into my coat pocket. The restaurant was the kind of place that made you feel underdressed even when you weren't. Brass sconces, white linen, a hostess with the practiced composure of someone paid to silently evaluate your shoes. Harper paused just outside the private dining room, and through the glass panel in the door, I could see a long table full of people. Silver hair, dark suits, jewel-toned dresses, and at the far end, a man in a charcoal blazer who turned toward the doorway as if he'd been watching it all along. Derek. Had to be. Handsome in the way that looked maintained rather than natural. Harper's fingers went cold in mine. I leaned in close, not dramatically, just close enough to reach her. "Red light," I murmured. She took one breath, then another. "No," she said. Then she looked up at me, and the nerves in her expression had acquired company, a spark, a dare, something that had decided to stop waiting. "Boyfriend," she whispered. "Yes, try to keep up." And before I could respond, Harper rose onto her toes and kissed my cheek. Soft, warm, dangerously near the corner of my mouth. Then pushed the door open and walked into the room, pulling me behind her like she'd made her choice weeks ago. Her family looked at us the way people look at something unexpected arriving on a silver tray. Her mother, Celeste Ellis, rose first. Elegant in cream silk, with the kind of posture that made chairs seem like a courtesy she extended to furniture. "Harper, darling, Mom." Harper squeezed my hand once. "This is Grant." I stepped forward. "Mrs. Ellis, happy anniversary." Celeste's gaze moved over me with the unhurried thoroughness of a museum curator. "How thoughtful," she said. "And how sudden." Harper's nails pressed into my palm. I smiled. Only sudden to people who weren't paying attention. Harper made a sound beside me that was half cough, half laugh. From across the table, Derek watched us with an expression that had been carefully assembled into pleasantness and had no warmth beneath it. Sharp haircut, smooth jaw, the particular confidence of a man who apologized by explaining how you'd misunderstood him. Harper's father, Martin, rescued us by rising and clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Grant, good to meet you, son. Sit, sit, we're just getting started." The only available seats were, naturally, beside Derek. Harper's grip tightened one more time. I tilted my mouth toward her ear. I can fake a sudden allergy to wealthy seating arrangements. Her shoulder trembled. "Behave, I make no promises." She looked up at me, and for a half second, the dining room blurred behind the edges of her smile. We sat. Derek immediately slid the wine list toward Harper. "You always loved the Pinot here." Harper didn't take it. "Sparkling water for me, actually." His brows rose a measured fraction. "That's new." "She contains multitudes," I said. Harper turned toward her water glass, not quite fast enough to hide the smile. Derek's attention shifted to me with the lazy precision of someone who had decided to enjoy himself. "And you're Grant Miller," Harper mentioned. His smile sharpened by 1 degree. "Roommate, right?" There it was. The table went quiet by 1 noticeable degree. "Among other things," Harper said, her voice composed and unhurried. And under the table I felt her hand trembling, so I threaded my fingers through hers. Not a performance, not a message to Derek, just a choice. And her thumb answered immediately. Rena, the cousin with the promised lipstick, and the gleeful energy of someone who had been waiting for this dinner for weeks, leaned forward from across the table. "So how did this happen?" Because Harper told us nothing, which means it's either serious or extremely entertaining. "Both," Harper said. I looked at her. "You think I'm entertaining?" "Occasionally, when properly supervised." "I'm wounded. You'll survive." Rena made a sound of pure delight. Celeste did not look equally delighted. "How long has this been going on?" 3 months, Harper said. 3, Derek repeated softly, the way someone repeats a number when they're calculating something. And Harper's smile held but her fingers went still, so I lifted her hand and pressed my mouth to the back of it. Hadn't planned to, and the moment my lips touched her skin, I knew it was going to cost me something, because the room registered a gesture while I felt her pulse. Harper looked at me, startled. Then something quiet and unguarded moved across her face and was gone before anyone else at the table could have caught it. 3 months, I said. Though I'd noticed her before that. Rena slapped the table. Details. Rena, Celeste said. Absolutely not. Details. Harper arched a brow at me. Yes, Grant. Details. Challenge accepted. She labels her leftovers with what I can only describe as legal threats. I live with a woman who considers soup theft a prosecutable offense. One time, Harper said. The soup had your name on it. It had H.E. That could stand for anything. It stood for Harper's. Eat and you'll regret it. Martin grinned. Rena laughed loud enough to draw looks from the next table. Even Aunt Linda, who had clearly arrived prepared to be suspicious, seemed temporarily charmed. Harper had gone pink, and I wanted unreasonably to keep doing that. Keep making her forget Derek was 2 feet to her left, keep earning that color in her cheeks. And, I continued, glancing at her, she talks to the plants when she thinks I'm not home. Her eyes went wide. Traitor. You actively encouraged the basil situation. It was struggling. You told it you believed in its journey. It needed that. Martin laughed into his wine. Harper leaned toward me, narrowing her eyes with the particular menace of someone who was actually pleased. Watch yourself, boyfriend. The word should have felt like stage direction. Instead, it sank into me like something meant. Dinner moved through courses I couldn't pronounce, and questions I mostly deflected with grace. Harper's father asked about my work with genuine curiosity. Rena demanded to know if I snored. Aunt Linda inquired about my parents' marital status and looked subtly disappointed when the answer was boring. And, course by course, Harper's shoulders came down from somewhere near her ears. Her knee found mine under the table at some point and stayed there, warm and easy, and I didn't move away. Halfway through the main course, Derek set down his fork. It's funny, he said pleasantly. Harper used to say that dating someone you lived with was a recipe for disaster. Harper's spine went very straight. I answered before the silence could settle wrong. She still says that. She also says that people who leave coffee mugs in the sink are a threat to civil society. I'm a work in progress. Harper laughed before she could catch it. Derek's jaw tightened briefly before the ease came back. Celeste looked between us. What changed your mind, Harper? The question landed gently but went somewhere deeper than Derek's had. Harper glanced down at our joined hands on the table, and I thought she'd give the safe answer. Timing, convenience, it just happened. But instead she said, he made the apartment feel safe, and my chest pulled tight. She raised her eyes to mine, not quiet safe or small safe, just easy to breathe. I hadn't realized how much I needed that until it was already true. The table had gone soft around us, waiters moving, silverware ringing against china, Derek sitting 2 feet away, Celeste watching with an expression I couldn't read, and none of it reached me because Harper was looking at me, and I forgot the flashcards, forgot the backstory, forgot every careful wall I'd built out of old wreckage. I leaned in until only she could hear me. You do that for me too, I said. Her breath caught. This time, I didn't just hear it. I felt it. Dessert arrived, and with it, a brief mercy. Celeste cried during Martin's toast, which made Martin cry, which made Rena take approximately 40 photographs, and in one of them, I saw it on her camera screen later. Harper and I were mid-laugh, heads tilted toward each other like 2 things that had forgotten to maintain their distance. Then Derek stood. Harper, could we speak for a moment? Just the 2 of us. The table quieted. Harper didn't look scared this time. She looked tired of him in a way that was entirely different. The tiredness of someone who has finally stopped finding an argument worth having. No, she said simply. I think I deserve 5 minutes. That's exactly the problem, Harper said. You've always thought you were owed things from me. Aunt Linda inhaled. Celeste whispered her name, but Harper didn't flinch, didn't stand, didn't explain herself to anyone. She just held my hand and waited. Derek's expression went hard for one unguarded second before the smoothness closed back over it. I see. Good, said Harper. I hope you do. He sat down. The evening didn't explode. It cooled briefly, like a room where someone opened a window, and then Rena loudly asked whether I'd been a difficult child, and the table climbed back toward warmth. But under the tablecloth, Harper's hand was shaking, and I moved my thumb across her knuckles. Not to rescue her, she didn't need that. Just to say, I'm here, I see you, you did that. Goodbyes took 20 minutes, Martin invited me to a barbecue with the warmth of someone who meant it. Celeste kissed Harper's cheek with a complicated silence that would probably require its own conversation later. Rena hugged me like we'd known each other for years and whispered, "Don't screw this up," directly into my ear. Then we were outside, under the restaurant's canvas awning, in the cool, wet dark of a Portland night. Harper exhaled like she'd been holding that breath since we arrived. "You were incredible," I said. She turned toward me, makeup a little worn, eyes bright, the composed version of herself from dinner, softening into someone I recognized better. "You were very committed to the role. 5-star service, prepared remarks, improvised hand-kissing, basil anecdote, all included." I noticed the hand-kissing was off-script. I improvise under pressure. Rain started tapping the canvas above us, slow and light. Her fingers brushed my lapel, not gripping, just resting there like she needed to confirm something. "Grant. Yeah. That thing you said inside. About me making it easy to breathe. Yeah, was that for them?" I held her gaze. "No." She stood very still. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed me. Not the cheek this time. Not borrowed from a fake story or staged for a dining room, but my mouth, soft at first, careful, almost a question, and I answered before my better judgment could weigh in, one hand settling at her waist, with a care that immediately made everything worse. She made a small sound against me, and the kiss deepened just enough to take the entire evening and reclassify it. When she pulled back, we were both breathing differently. Harper touched her lower lip, looking simultaneously brave and undone. "That," she whispered, "wasn't on the flashcards." "No," I said. "It wasn't." Her phone buzzed. Neither of us looked at it. The rideshare driver kept glancing at us in the mirror like he was watching something on a nature channel he hadn't expected to find interesting. Harper sat beside me, close but not touching, which somehow made it worse. Her knee 2 inches from mine, her hand resting on the seat between us like an open question. I could still feel her mouth. I could still hear the sound she'd made when I kissed her back. "Fake boyfriend," said the small, exhausted voice of my common sense. "Real kiss," answered everything else. When we got back to the apartment, Harper unlocked the door, stepped inside, and immediately turned to face me. Shoes in one hand, hair lightly mussed from the damp air, looking less like the woman who'd walked into that restaurant, and more like the Harper I knew at midnight, sharp and tired and real. "We should talk," she said. "Yes." Neither of us moved. Rain ticked against the window. The living room lamp had been left on, making the whole space feel smaller and warmer than usual. "I'm going to say something," she said. "If you make a joke, I'm throwing one of these heels." "Understood." A breath. "I kissed you because I wanted to. Not because Derek was standing there. Not because my family was watching." She set the shoes down carefully. "I know this is complicated. We lived together. We had rules. You have your entire no romance from proximity philosophy, which sounds like a pamphlet written by a monk who'd been badly burned." Despite myself, I laughed. She leveled a look at me. "Still not the main point. The point is, I don't want to pretend that kiss didn't happen, and I don't want you to be kind to me tomorrow by deciding it was a mistake." There it was. Not that she might want me, but that she might think I didn't want her back. I crossed the room slowly, giving her every opportunity to step away, and she didn't. "I've wanted to kiss you for months," I said. Something in her face cracked open, all that careful composure giving way to something younger and more unguarded. "Months?" she repeated. Plural months. An embarrassing quantity of months. How embarrassing. "I once spent 20 minutes in the cereal aisle because you texted me get whatever you like, and I stood there, realizing I wanted to know which cereal was yours. What you'd actually want in the cabinet beside mine." Harper stared at me. Then she laughed. Unsteady, soft, nothing like her polished restaurant laugh. "That is genuinely concerning. I bought 3 boxes. I know. We had cereal for 2 weeks." A pause. "You noticed which ones I ate first. I notice you, Harper." That undid something, quietly, like a lock releasing. She reached for my hand, and I gave it to her. "I'm scared of getting this wrong," I said. "Me too. We share walls. We share oat milk with detailed labeling systems. If this falls apart, we'll be 2 uncomfortable adults with a very awkward sublet problem." She squeezed my fingers. "But if it doesn't, I don't want to miss it because we were both too careful." I had no argument left against that. So I kissed her. Deliberately this time, nothing borrowed, nothing performed. Her free hand found my shoulder, mine found her waist. and the apartment that had held 8 months of careful restraint seemed to exhale around us, like it had been waiting too. She kissed the way she argued, focused, honest, with a quiet edge of challenge underneath. When I pulled back, she followed me half an inch before catching herself, then opened her eyes as if personally offended that I'd stopped. "Hi," I said. "Terrible opening line. I'm out of practice, I can tell." Her mouth curved. "You're cruel. You like it." I did. God help me, I absolutely did. We ended up on the couch the way these things happen, not because anyone made a decision, but because standing upright while feelings were being admitted aloud was apparently a skill level neither of us had reached. Harper tucked her feet underneath her and turned sideways. I sat angled toward her, our knees touching. The kiss had changed things, but not into something complicated, into something clearer, something that finally matched the room it was in. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. We both looked at it this time. Celeste. Harper exhaled slowly and picked it up, and her mother's message was brief enough that I caught it before I could look away. Derek left upset. "I hope you know what you're doing." Harper's jaw tightened, and I watched her, waiting to see if she'd fold back into damage control mode, start composing the careful reply, manage everyone's feelings from a distance. Instead, she turned the phone face down on the cushion. "I'm not answering tonight." "Good." She looked at me. "You don't have to keep doing the boyfriend thing. The dinner's over." "I know. So, if you want to take a step back." "I don't." Her eyes held mine, searching, and I made myself say the clear thing, the adult, unambiguous thing that neither of us could quietly misinterpret by morning. "I want to take you on a real date." Her lips parted. "A real one? No flashcards, no audience, no ex-boyfriends materializing near the dessert course." "Ambitious, Powell's," I said. "Coffee, cookbooks, aspirational fiction. We'll go back and make the lie true." Her smile arrived slowly, and it was, without question, devastating. "When?" "Tomorrow. I have work. After work, I might be exhausted. I'll have coffee ready. I'll probably judge your book taste. I'm counting on it." She leaned sideways until her shoulder pressed against mine. "Okay, one word. Quiet and enormous." I couldn't stop smiling. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. You look unbearably smug." "I have a date with my roommate." "Scandalous behavior?" "I'm going to tell the Basil." She laughed, real and unguarded, and then rested her head against my shoulder, and that small weight hit harder than the kiss had, by a significant margin. We stayed like that for a while, no performance left between us, no audience to play to. Her hair tickled my jaw. My hand rested open on the cushion, and after a minute her fingers settled into it like they'd been deciding whether to for some time. "I hated that he was there," she said quietly. "I didn't tense. I just listened. I hated that everyone at the table was watching to see whether I'd be gracious about it. Like politeness is the metric for whether you've actually healed." She swallowed. "But when you kissed my hand, I didn't feel managed. I didn't feel rescued." A pause. I felt chosen. I turned my head slightly and pressed my lips to her hair. "You were," I said. Her fingers tightened around mine. The next day moved like a shared secret neither of us had agreed to keep. We were both spectacularly bad at acting normal. Harper burned her toast because she was watching me pour coffee instead of watching the toaster. I forgot the word spoon mid-sentence and called it the small shovel, and she came out in a blue sweater at 7:15 and asked if it was date appropriate, then immediately colored, like she wished she could retract the question. "It's dangerously appropriate," I told her. "Don't be charming before 8. It's destabilizing." By 6:30 I was standing outside Powell's in the November cold, holding 2 coffees and experiencing the specific, humiliating nerves of someone who has kissed this person already and is somehow more anxious now than before. Harper arrived 5 minutes late, breathless, cheeks bitten pink from the wind. "Sorry, a donor wanted to discuss centerpiece height for 45 minutes. Appalling. I almost had to take this latte as my date. Did it laugh at your jokes? No. Then it's not your type." She took her cup, and we went inside. The warm air and the smell of old paper settled around us immediately. We moved through the aisles, shoulder to shoulder, unhurried, and in the cookbook section, Harper pulled a massive French pastry volume off the shelf and held it up like evidence. "This," she announced, "is fiction. You don't think you'll ever make a 12-layer opera cake? I once destroyed instant pudding, Grant. There were witnesses. I'd still eat it." She looked over at me, her smile going soft at the edges. "That is either deeply romantic or a cry for medical attention. I don't see why it can't be both." Somewhere between the travel essays and the poetry section, she reached for my hand first. No fanfare, no one watching, just her fingers finding mine between the shelves. And it felt more real than anything we'd done the night before, in front of a table full of people with opinions. Later, tucked into a quiet corner near the rain-streaked windows, she found a photography book of old Portland theaters and opened it between us. And I leaned in to look over her shoulder and without thinking rested my chin lightly near her temple. She went very still. "Red light?" I murmured. "Green," she said. "Definitely green." So I stayed, and for 3 pages, maybe 4, we stood there in the warm, dim quiet of the bookstore and let ourselves simply be what we were becoming. No performance required. Then her phone buzzed. Harper glanced at the screen, and I felt the change in her before I saw her face. That slight, careful stillness that meant something had landed wrong. The message wasn't from her mother. "We need to talk. I know your little relationship is fake, and I can prove it. Derek." She stared at the words until the screen went dark on its own, and the corner of the bookstore, which had felt entirely ours 30 seconds ago, now had a third person in it who wasn't even there. For one instinctive, useless second, I wanted to take the phone from her hand and handle it. But then I actually looked at Harper. Not frightened, not shrinking, furious, the quiet kind, which on her was considerably more formidable than the loud kind would have been on anyone else. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "You're not going to tell me to ignore it?" I was going to suggest throwing the phone into the Willamette, but it seemed logistically complicated. That earned half a laugh. She looked back at the darkened screen. "He wants me rattled. That's his preferred version of me. Off balance, apologizing, managing his feelings. Is it working?" A slow breath. Then she slid the phone into her coat pocket. "No, good, but I need to tell my mother the truth." My stomach did something unhelpful. Harper clocked it immediately. She always clocked things immediately, which was one of the 17 problems I'd been quietly accumulating about her for 8 months. "Not that truth," she said, softer now. I held her gaze. She stepped closer, right there in the poetry aisle, and lifted both coffees out of my hands to set them on the nearest display table, then took both of my hands in hers. "I mean the truth that I lied at first," she said. "And the bigger truth that somewhere between the flashcards and the hand-kissing and the basil commentary, I stopped lying." Her thumb moved across my knuckles. "Last night may have started as pretend, but this," she squeezed gently, "this is not. I should have said something smooth, something that matched the moment. Instead, I said, 'I'm really glad I walked in on you with that plunger.'" She laughed, full and bright and startled out of her, and dropped her forehead against my chest, and I put my arms around her in the middle of Powell's, while strangers browsed quietly past. And it felt less like a grand declaration than a door that had been slightly ajar for 8 months, finally opening all the way. We left with one photography book, one cookbook Harper described as aspirational comedy, and a plan. The plan lasted until we reached our building lobby. Celeste was there, sitting on the small gray bench near the mailboxes, coat folded across her lap, face arranged in the careful way of someone who has been rehearsing, and she stood when she saw us. "Harper," she said. Then, "Grant." Harper's hand found mine. Didn't squeeze, just found it. "Mom." Her voice was steady. "If Derek called you, he did. Of course he did." Celeste's gaze dropped to our joined hands, then returned to Harper's face. "He said, you fabricated the relationship, that you did it to embarrass him." Harper's jaw tightened. "Of course he said that. Did you?" The lobby hummed. A dryer knocked faintly somewhere in the building. Harper looked at me, not for permission, just for something solid to look at, and I nodded once. She turned back to her mother. "I lied when I told you we'd been together for 3 months. That part was invented." Her voice didn't waver, but I heard what it cost her to hold it steady. "But I didn't do it to humiliate Derek. I did it because you invited someone who hurt me to your anniversary dinner and expected me to be pleasant about it, and I panicked. Grant came because I asked him to. Because he's kind. Because he actually listens. Because he makes me feel less alone when I'm scared." She glanced at me briefly, and the look in her eyes did something irreversible to my chest. "And because it turns out we're both genuinely terrible at pretending not to want each other." "Historically poor," I confirmed. Harper's mouth twitched. Celeste stood very still for a long moment, and then something in her posture shifted, not collapse, but the harder thing, the thing proud people arrive at reluctantly and mean when they get there. "I thought," she said slowly, that if you and Derek had a chance to speak, it might make things easier. For who? Harper asked. Celeste had no answer, and the silence that followed was its own answer. I'm sorry, Celeste said finally. Harper went very still, the stillness of someone who hadn't let themselves expect those words. I should have asked you, instead of deciding what would be easier. Celeste's voice was quieter now. I should have believed what you'd already shown me. Harper blinked, fast and deliberate. I loosened my grip slightly in case she needed her hand back for privacy, and she held on. Celeste noticed that. A small, complicated smile moved across her face. For what it's worth, Derek didn't prove anything last night, except that he still believes your life is his to have opinions about. Harper exhaled, something between a breath and a laugh. He's wrong. Yes, Celeste said. He is. She stepped forward and hugged her daughter. Harper stiffened first, the way she always braced before letting something in, and then went soft, and I stood to the side holding the cookbook, doing my best not to be visibly destroyed next to the mailboxes. After Celeste left, the lobby felt different, lighter. Harper turned to me. That was not how I anticipated our first real date ending. I don't know. We bought books, navigated a family reckoning, and successfully rendered an antagonist irrelevant. Fairly productive evening. Antagonist's irrelevance. Is that the working title? Still drafting. She smiled, and then stepped forward and slid her arms around my neck. What are you doing? I asked. Taking responsibility, she said. And then she kissed me. Not careful this time, not cautious, not borrowed from any fake story or staged for anyone's benefit, just Harper, in our building lobby under fluorescent lighting, rain still damp on her coat, a cookbook wedged between us, kissing me like she had simply decided to, and that was the end of the discussion. I kissed her back the way a man kisses someone he's been orbiting for 8 months and 2 days. Because that's exactly what I was. After that, we didn't become perfect. We became honest. We kept separate bedrooms for a while longer, because choosing felt more deliberate than rushing. And we both liked things we chose carefully. We went on real dates, ramen in the rain, genuinely catastrophic mini-golf, Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, where Harper strong-armed me into sampling vegetables I couldn't pronounce, and refused to tell me what I was eating until after. Derek sent one more message. Harper deleted it, without opening it, then blocked the number, and made pancakes. 3 months later, she stopped knocking, before walking into my room on Saturday mornings. She'd arrive carrying coffee, wearing one of my sweatshirts, like she had a legal claim to it, which, by that point, she arguably did. 6 months after that, we let the second bedroom go, and turned it into an office with 2 desks, too many houseplants, and the basil, which Harper insisted had believed in us from the beginning, thriving in the window like it was personally vindicated. A year after the dinner, Celeste invited us back to the same restaurant for their anniversary. No Derek, no flashcards, no rehearsed backstory. Harper wore the green dress again, and I zipped it up slowly while she watched me in the mirror, already smiling in that way that meant she knew exactly what I was thinking. You know, she said, this all started because you walked in here uninvited, holding a plunger. I was experiencing a genuine emergency. And then I made you take responsibility. You were terrifying. I had no choice. She turned, smoothing my lapel with both hands. Best decision I ever made. I looked at her. The woman who had been my roommate, my invented girlfriend, my real date, my home, and felt the old fear of proximity. The thing I'd built my rules around for 2 years, quietly become something else. Something that didn't need rules anymore. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on a schedule or by grand design. Sometimes it's already in your kitchen, dancing in socks, labeling oat milk, trusting you with a zipper while the rain hammers the windows. I kissed her before we left, one hand at the small of her back, and she smiled against my mouth like she thought the whole story had been worth its awkward, plunger-wielding beginning. And honestly, so did I. What would you have done if you accidentally walked in on your roommate and she told you to take responsibility? Have you ever had an awkward moment quietly become something real? Tell me in the comments. If this one landed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.